I'm Kelli Hastings. I wanted to give some pointers for fighting your red light camera ticket, specifically in Central Florida. You may know that I recently won an appeal from the city of Orlando regarding my red light camera ticket. And the reason I was able to do that was that I had asked the police officer in the court below some questions that helped establish the record for my case. What you have to do is you can't just go into the hearing and argue under the case law from my case decision, the Hastings case, that the court should dismiss your case. That's not going to happen unless you establish some evidence. The best thing to do really is to wait until you get a uniform traffic citation in the mail. In other words, don't go to the hearing officer to argue your ticket. Wait until you get a uniform traffic citation in the mail. Ignore that initial violation. Once you get the uniform traffic citation in the mail, request a hearing before a traffic judge. But either way, whether you're before the local hearing officer that's hired by the city or municipality, or whether you're in real traffic court, you're still going to have to establish some evidence to win your case. You can't just go in there and argue it should be dismissed based on the case law authority. You have to establish some evidence. And the best way to do that is to ask the police officer that's going to be there, or the traffic infraction enforcement officer, some questions. And the questions that you need to ask have to establish that a private vendor is the real entity that's determining, first off, whether a violation occurred. In other words, the private vendor, usually American Traffic Solutions, ATS, they're the ones that make the initial determination whether a violation occurred. And you have to establish that for the record. So you can ask questions of the traffic infraction enforcement officer, like, does a private vendor manage your camera program? Does the private vendor collect and review the videos before sending them to you, before sending them to the traffic enforcement officer? Do they forward all the videos, or do they only forward some of the videos to the law enforcement officer? And of the videos they forward to you for review, do a majority of those result in a violation? So what you're really trying to establish through this line of questioning is that there's a private company, American Traffic Solutions or another private company, that's making the initial determination that a violation occurred before it's even sent to law enforcement. And if you can establish that in the record through the law enforcement officer's testimony, then you have a chance to win your case. So once you've asked the officer those questions, you would then turn to the judge and say, Judge, I move to dismiss my case because it's an improper delegation of police power under the authority of the City of Hollywood versus Aram case or the Hastings versus City of Orlando case. And we'll post links to those cases in the comments so you can use them. But again, I would, number one, recommend getting an attorney, because it really is procedurally difficult to fight these on your own. But if you're going to fight it on your own, you have to get some facts and evidence. You've got to ask the police officer those questions. So out of the gate, we wanted to talk about that, but I also wanted to get into, why would you want to fight your ticket? Why would you fight it? We hear a lot of kind of negative commentary on people that fight these things, that people should be accountable, you just shouldn't run red lights, that it's a safety issue, and we're here today to debunk some of those myths about red light cameras as well. But I first off wanted to show you, when you're looking at your red light camera infraction, where you can see whether you actually ran a red light or not, because most of the violations are fractions of a second. And I've got a picture here that we can show you that shows you how to read the metadata bar on these red light camera pictures. And what you can look at is, it's called the red 1 interval in Orlando. In Orange County, it's actually called the
R time.
The R time interval. But if you look at it, in this case it was 0.3 seconds. In another case we have over here, it was 0.1 seconds. But anytime you see the R time or the red 1 time, less than a second at 0.3, 0.2, 0.1, then that really raises a question of whether you even actually ran the red light, because there's a margin of error there, and a lot of it comes down to how the yellow light interval is set, which I've got David Shaw here with me today, and he's going to talk a little bit about that. We hear this all the time. It's a safety issue. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm David Shaw. I've analyzed the City of Orlando's ticket data. I've analyzed crash data for the county. And what I've found has been rather troubling and suggests that it's a safety issue in that it is not improving safety, and in fact it's very likely decreasing safety on our roadways. And when you're talking about public safety, why would you want to keep a program that is actually making you less safe on the roads. And the reason for that is we're using the state and the city and or the county, whichever jurisdiction it may be, are generally using bare bones minimum yellow light times. If we could just increase the yellow light time by a half a second or a second, violations would drop so much that these cameras would become unprofitable and that just would not be cost effective for these municipalities in the state or the camera vendors really to keep them in operation. So they want to use yellows that are short as possible. And I've got a case right here where a camera was moved from Hiawassee and Claricona Ocoee when the yellow light time was increased to 5.9 seconds and violations dropped from 97 a month on average to just 9, so that camera wasn't paying for itself anymore. And that violation level stayed low for 15 months. So the violations did not rebound. So you're going to hear a lot of camera proponents and camera vendors say that people get used to the longer yellow, which is just simply not true. There's local examples of that, as well as national examples of that. So once that camera became unprofitable, ATS came in and amended the contract with the county in late 2014 because they knew this. They knew that that camera and two others in the county were losing money, so they had to move them to more profitable locations. So this camera was moved down to Turkey Lake and Sand Lake. The yellow light time initially was 4.9 seconds. Sometime in July of last year, of 2015, the yellow light time was then shortened to 4.4 seconds.
Yeah, so we hear don't run red lights, or I got just be accountable for your actions. Just don't run red lights. But it's not as simple as that. Like we said, most of these violations are fractions of a second, 0.1 seconds, 0.2 seconds. You wouldn't get a speeding ticket for going a half a mile over the speed limit. And legally, you can't even get one for that. And a police officer if a police officer was standing there watching you run a red light at 0.1 seconds, they wouldn't even be able to tell with their eyes that had happened. It's like we've given more power to these cameras than we even give to local law enforcement, because a local law enforcement officer isn't going to ticket someone for running a red light at 0.1 seconds, but a camera will. So we've really empowered this out-of-state company with our police power. We've turned our police power over to them, and they're giving tickets to people that wouldn't be ticketed otherwise. So, I mean, if you look at this is a picture of violation. And here is what we call like the metadata or time code stamp bar. And it gives you information like which lane your vehicle was in, how fast you were traveling, and it also tells you by how much you supposedly ran the red light. In this case, it was 0.3 seconds. But this data bar is not provided with the video that ATS gives you. So there's no way to cross-reference the still frame that shows that you allegedly ran a red light with the video evidence, because the video evidence doesn't contain this information, at least not on the videos they send you. So it's an unfair, it's really kind of a violation of your due process rights that you're not able to see the video evidence that you're being accused according to. You're not able to see that video evidence is actually accurate. You're not able to cross-check it with the photographs. The system is inherently unfair.